Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. Sitting here kind of scanning an interesting new book by Francis Gummerlock entitled Revelation in the First Century. Somebody on Facebook posted a notification of it. It's a really, really fascinating book. And what Gummerlock does is to show from really, really ancient writings that the preterist view, not the full preterist, but the preterist view of Revelation was an extremely early view. And of course, that's in direct competition or contradiction, to most people who say, well, nobody ever heard of the idea of book of Revelation being fulfilled. And yet he points out in documents from ancient writings how very, very early on it was believed that, for instance, John was exiled to Patmos by Nero. Revelation 6, the martyrs under the altar and their vindication referred to AD 70. And on it goes. Pardon me. Of course, it's fascinating that Mr. Gummerlock could not help but take a swipe at the full preterist view, calling it heresy, etc., etc. And what is his authority? Oh, it's not the Bible. It's Augustine and the creeds. Well, wow. Sorry, that's not very persuasive. Okay, interesting book, Revelation in the First Century, for some really good documentation that the Roman invasion of Judea was the abomination of desolation. On and on. Some really good stuff in that regard. Obviously, he's slanted by the creeds, which is unfortunate, but, such as it is. Well, welcome back again. We are examining the doctrine of the already but the not yet. We are bringing this to a close, but I want to examine, I want to concentrate on the final book of the Bible, Revelation, because perhaps nowhere else, and I don't know that this is a technically accurate statement, but perhaps nowhere else do we find such a dominant view of the already but the not yet. It is found pervasively throughout the book of Revelation. Now, some of the material I'm about to present will be almost a recapitulation. That's a little bit of irony because the book of Revelation is recapitulation. But be that as it may, I've touched on, I've touched on this information before, so I hope you'll bear with me as I present this material. First of all, the already but the not yet is presented to us, Revelation chapter 1, verse 19. John was told to write about the things that he had seen that were in the past, the things that are, and the things that are about to take place. About to take place, from the Greek word mello with the infinitive, and as the Blasda Brunner Greek grammar of the New Testament says, mello, the Greek word mello, when it is used with the infinitive, indicates imminence. All lexicons agree that the primary definition of mello, and especially when used with the infinitive, is imminence, about to be. Okay, so here is John writing about things that already have been, that's the past, things that are, and things that are about to take place. Throughout the book of Revelation, therefore, we find John referring back to events that had already taken place. For instance, past martyrdom of the saints, past martyrdom of the prophets, past martyrdom of Jesus, past martyrdom of the apostles and prophets to a certain extent. We find the things that are, the then ongoing persecution of the saints. And we find the future, the not yet, persecution of the saints. Revelation chapter 6, those under the altar. And we'll be looking at Revelation 6 more in depth. But those under the altar, they've been slain for the word of God. They cry out for vengeance. They're given white robes and told to rest only a little while. Now watch, until their fellow brethren, who should be slain as they were, should be fulfilled. Now here's past suffering, but here is future suffering. And so here's the already, but the not yet, pardon me, of the filling up of the measure of suffering. The filling up of the measure of martyrs. This is an absolutely critical element. As I suggested in an earlier segment, somewhere around 34 to 36, the issue of martyrdom and eschatology is one of the most significant, one of the most foundational doctrines in all of the Bible in regard to eschatology. And yet, strangely enough, it is not given the proper place in those discussions. I think you will see as we close our series on the already but the not yet, how absolutely critical martyr vindication is to the eschatology of the book of Revelation. But for the moment, notice the already but the not yet of the book of Revelation. John was told to write of the things that had been, the things that are, the things that are about to come. Folks, that's already but not yet. And when we come to the issue of martyr vindication, we have those who have been slain in the past before they can be vindicated the measure of sin by persecuting the saints, and the measure of martyrdom must be filled up. That is the not yet. Thus, we have a perfect example in the book of Revelation of the already and the not yet in regard not only to martyr vindication, but as we will see, to the story of eschatology. So, we've got more. You don't want to miss any of this. Stay tuned. We'll see you on the flip side.